What happens when a seemingly perfect marriage turns into a national spectacle of lies and deceit? Gone Girl follows Nick and Amy Dunne, a couple whose picture-perfect life shatters when Amy mysteriously disappears on their 5th wedding anniversary. As the media frenzy grows and evidence piles up, Nick's world spirals out of control. But the real story is darker, smarter, and far more twisted than anyone could imagine. So let's dive straight in. Nick Dunne is a laid-back man in his 40s, married to a beautiful woman named Amy. It's their 5th wedding anniversary, but Nick doesn't seem too excited about it. Instead of celebrating or buying her a gift, he goes to a bar to grab a drink. The bartender happens to be his twin sister, Margot. She notices that he looks upset and asks what's wrong. Then, the story flashes back to how Nick and Amy first met. Amy was a popular writer known for her children's books, and she was hosting a book launch event in New York. Nick was one of the guests. They started talking and quickly found out that they both loved books. Even though Amy was much more successful, they hit it off. Nick charmed her with his wit, and after spending the evening wandering around the city together, they kissed and spent the night together. Back in the present, Nick gets a call from a neighbor saying his cat is outside. When he gets home, he notices that the front door is open. He calls out for Amy but gets no response. As he looks around, he finds a broken glass table and realizes something might be wrong. He calls the police. Detective Rhonda and her assistant arrive at the scene to investigate. They look around the house and find small drops of blood in odd places. When Rhonda notices Amy's books and realizes she's famous, she decides to treat the case as a high-profile disappearance. Later at the police station, Nick is questioned. Rhonda tells him that Amy's credit cards are being tracked. A forensics team is searching the house, and there will be a press conference the next day. Nick doesn't seem too worried. He just says that Amy didn't have friends and spent most of her time reading. Another flashback shows happier times during their first wedding anniversary. They were still very much in love, buying expensive gifts for each other and even being intimate in public places. Back in the present, while Rhonda continues her investigation, a pregnant woman named Noelle shows up, claiming to be Amy's best friend. She says they've been close for over a year, even though Nick had told the police Amy didn't have any friends. Soon, the forensic team finds more clues. They discover that blood had been splattered across the kitchen floor and then cleaned up. They also find out that the house is under Amy's name, not Nick's. The next day, a press conference is held. Since Amy's well known, the media coverage is huge. When it's Nick's turn to speak, he gives a short, awkward statement and even smiles for a photo, which doesn't look great on TV. Another flashback shows how things between Nick and Amy started falling apart. They had moved from New York to Nick's hometown in Missouri to take care of his sick mother. Amy struggled to adjust, and Nick couldn't find a job for months. They had to borrow money from Amy's wealthy parents, and their finances were tight. Their conversations often turned into arguments, and Amy started keeping a diary to record her feelings. In the present, 2 days after Amy's disappearance, her parents organize a community event to gather volunteers. Nick shows up, but he seems detached, and even takes selfies with some of the attendees. The media quickly starts portraying him as an uncaring husband. That night, Nick stays at his sister Margot's place to avoid reporters. On TV, news anchors are criticizing him for smiling during the press conference and acting too casual. Margot confronts him, asking why he doesn't seem worried about Amy. Nick snaps back, saying he's exhausted and doesn't need to be judged. A few hours later, a young woman sneaks into Margot's house. It's Nick's girlfriend, Andy. Now everything starts to make sense. Nick isn't grieving because he's having an affair. He and Andy, who turns out to be one of his college students, spend the night together. The next morning, Margot catches them and is furious. Nick admits that he's been unhappy for a long time. He says Amy made him feel miserable, and their relationship had become unbearable. He insists that the affair wasn't planned. He just needed comfort, and Andy was there. Margot warns him that if the police find out about this, he'll look even guiltier. Meanwhile, the news coverage gets worse. Reporters begin calling Nick a possible suspect, pointing out his strange behavior and his affair. In another flashback from Amy's diary, she writes about wanting to have a baby to fix their marriage. Nick, however, doesn't want children. During an argument, he shoves her, accidentally hurting her. Though he apologizes, Amy becomes afraid of him. In her diary, she writes that she wants a divorce, but believes Nick won't let her go because he wants access to her parents' money. Back in the present, Detective Rhonda receives the forensic report from the lab. The blood samples found in the house are confirmed to belong to Amy, making the situation even more serious. That evening, Nick is invited to speak at another public event about his missing wife. Just as he starts, Amy's supposed best friend Noelle interrupts him. She shouts that Nick is hiding something, and then drops a huge bomb. Amy was 6 weeks pregnant when she disappeared. Everyone is stunned. Margot, Nick's sister, Andy, his girlfriend, Amy's parents, even the crowd turns hostile toward Nick. The police quickly escort him away before things get out of hand. Later that night, Detective Rhonda visits Nick at home. She brings photos proving that Amy and Noelle were actually close friends, which directly contradicts what Nick told her earlier. Rhonda also confirms that the blood found in the kitchen belongs to Amy. With all the evidence stacking up, she concludes that Amy was murdered, and all signs point toward Nick. The only thing missing now is Amy's body. After the detective leaves, Margot sits down with Nick to ask about the pregnancy news. Nick looks shocked. He insists Amy never told him she was pregnant and, in fact, never even wanted kids. Meanwhile, Detective Rhonda goes to Nick's father's house to search for more clues. There she finds Amy's half-burned diary in the fireplace, which adds more weight to the theory that Nick is guilty. Then, the movie takes a sharp turn. It's revealed that Amy isn't dead at all. She's alive, and she's the one who staged everything to make it look like Nick killed her. Amy carefully planned the entire setup to frame him. In her mind, Nick ruined her life by lying, cheating, and making her feel worthless. So she decided to get revenge in the most elaborate way possible. We see how she pulled it off. Amy made friends with Noelle, her not-so-bright neighbor, and used her as part of the plan. Since Noelle was pregnant, Amy secretly took a sample of her urine and used it to fake medical records showing that she herself was pregnant. She also told Noelle lies about Nick being abusive to her. To stage the crime scene, Amy drew her own blood and splattered it around the kitchen, then wiped it up just enough to leave traces. She filled her diary with fake stories of Nick being violent and controlling. It turns out Nick never hurt her. It was all a setup. Amy's plan started the night she caught Nick cheating on her. That's when she decided she'd disappear and make him suffer. Meanwhile, Nick begins to realize what's happening. He's sure Amy's framing him, but he has no solid proof. Desperate, he hires Tanner Bolt, a top defense lawyer. Tanner advises him to shift public opinion in his favor. To do that, Nick needs to expose Amy's manipulative side and find people she's wronged before. Nick remembers one person, Desi Collins, Amy's ex-boyfriend. Years ago, Amy had filed a restraining order against Desi, saying he was obsessive. Nick visits Desi's mansion, hoping for help, but Desi still seems obsessed with Amy and refuses to say anything negative about her. Meanwhile, Amy, now living under a fake identity, rents a room in a cheap motel in a small town. She tries to stay unnoticed and lives quietly. But one day, she accidentally dropped a bundle of cash in front of her neighbors. That night, the same people broke into her room, robbed her, and roughed her up. Luckily, they don't recognize her as the famous missing woman from the news. Still, Amy gets scared and decides to leave. With no money and nowhere else to go, she calls Desi for help. He's thrilled to hear from her and rushes to meet her at a casino. Amy pretends that Nick tried to kill her and that she had to escape. Desi believes every word and offers to take care of her. He brings her to his remote lakeside villa, surrounded by security cameras, and promises to keep her safe. Back home, Nick and Tanner try another strategy. Tanner suggests that Nick go on national television to tell the truth about his affair, to appear honest and gain sympathy. Before they can go through with it, though, Andy, Nick's girlfriend, reveals their relationship to the media herself. This makes things even worse. Tanner tells Nick to cancel the interview, but Nick insists on doing it anyway. During the interview, Nick manages to win over many viewers. He admits his mistakes and speaks emotionally about Amy saying, "I will love my wife forever." Even Amy, watching from Desi's villa, is moved. For the first time, she starts to miss him. After 21 days of being missing, Amy decides to return home. But there's a problem. Desi expects her to stay with him forever. He's quit his job and isolated himself completely to be with her. Amy realizes he won't let her leave easily and that she's trapped again, this time by someone else. So she comes up with a new plan. She stages her escape from Desi. First, she makes marks on her wrists to look like she was tied up. Then she injures herself to make it appear she was assaulted. She records a video of herself screaming for help, making sure the cameras catch everything. When Desi comes home, she seduces him and then kills him. The next morning, the police are preparing to arrest Nick based on the diary and other evidence. But before they can, Amy suddenly shows up at her home, covered in blood. Everyone is shocked. Doctors examine Amy and conclude that she's been through a traumatic experience. Nick realizes that she's lying again. but there's nothing he can do to prove it. In front of the media and police, Amy tells her fake story that Deceit kidnapped her, held her hostage, and assaulted her before she managed to escape. The public believes her completely, and she becomes a national hero once more. Only Nick and Margot know the truth, but they're powerless to expose her. In the final moments, Nick and Amy return home. On the outside, everything seems normal, but Nick is deeply uneasy. He knows Amy killed Deceit and manipulated everyone, yet she acts as if she did it all to save their marriage. Nick tells her he wants to leave, but Amy threatens to destroy his life if he does. Realizing he's trapped, Nick plays along. That night, he puts Amy to bed and quietly locks the door from the outside, unsure of what she might do next. He's free in name only, stuck in a marriage with someone who controls everything.